Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of AI in the Enterprise. And I'm really glad that you're able to join us because I have a special guest you're really going to enjoy meeting, speaking with, and actually following. And that is Chenyang Xu. Chenyang, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Chenyang, I think we want to take a few minutes and actually introduce you to this group of people who track digital transformation, who track trends in artificial intelligence, and broadly in innovation in the enterprise. And really, I thought what was very intriguing about your background is first and foremost, you're a technologist, you're a practitioner, you're an educator. Tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, so I think I always wanted to become a professor, and so that's what I pursued. So I had a CS undergraduate, back in 1990, between 1990 and 1993, I did research on actually neural network, and I did my bachelor thesis on three-layer neural network on 8 computers at the time, and so that was fascinating. But it was the AR winter after graduation, so I decided to focus something more practical at the time, was looking at computer vision, pattern recognition that applied to medicine. So I was fortunate to get to a full scholarship to Hopkins back in the early 90s, and so I did my master and PhD there, and did some seminal work there, and that was used actually widely in the world, in industry, but also in research field, and also was in the textbook. And so for that work, I was, many years later, I became IEEE fellow. And so that was a good opening. But then after stayed at Hopkins after my PhD as a scientist, working with MIT, CMU, and Hopkins Medicine and Harvard, we have a big computer-aided surgery center set up, and really using robotics and AI to really help revolutionize surgery. And so I stayed for 2 years. That was very good learning, and met a lot of brilliant scientists, among many universities and doctors too. And then so learned the importance of multi-perspective opinions and learning and collaboration. But then I realized my heart is really just be more applied. And so I thought, so I joined Siemens Corporate Research and then continued doing research, but then my heart shifted to building products. And then years later, I came back to more like speaking and advising after my Siemens general management job, now I'm actually co-founded Silicon Valley Future Academy, and also teaching AI innovation and digital transformation to CEOs and senior executives around the world. Meanwhile, I'm a joint faculty member for Tsinghua University School of Management and teaching open innovation there. And aside advising UCSF, Health Hub, and Hopkins BME department. So yeah, so it's kind of full circle. Yeah, on the education side.
Not only is it a full circle, it's very impressive. We like talking to people that are sort of born in technology, and obviously your background and the early years in the work in neural nets, but just the breadth of experience. And I think what was really fascinating for me is the blend of being a practitioner, a technologist, kind of getting your fingers dirty, if you will, and at the same time, and you talked a little bit about being a general manager in the large corporate world, and driving innovation as a muscle. We'll go back to that a little bit in this discussion. And then combining that with advisory, investment, outlook as you work with the ecosystem. I thought that the combination of those 3 spheres of activities, and I know you could talk about it as a full circle, but there are only 3 different spheres, and that's fantastic to see that all come together. So thank you for being here. I know that my audience is going to be really excited to spend some time with you, and I am as well. And so without further ado, I thought we'd just jump right into it. Listen, we spent a lot of time talking about digital transformation, and you've sort of seen the gamut of things over the last so many years in all of those 3 different spheres of work. Mm-hmm. And clearly, we've gone through so many, the early years of neural nets and the ice age that you talked about, and then sort of coming back into the foundation of data era and the big data era and then the AI era. And so across that time span, some things have changed, some things have not. Talk to me a little bit about what has changed in the world of digital.
I think that when I was, let me use healthcare as the experience because I have been working that field the longest, almost 30 years. And back in the 2000 to 2009, that whole decade, I was actually leading the R&D of Siemens in terms of doing applying computer vision, pattern recognition to help make minimal invasive treatment, and intervention surgery better. At the time, there's a lot of AI technique being used. And as audience may know, computer vision is one of the biggest field in AI. But back then, I think what changed was back then, you spend, we basically spent 2 years on really just trying to get a high def model of the human heart, right? And so that helped guide the, heart ablation, and then you have to do the all normal commercialization because I let the team do the whole product. And then you have to release in a clinical trial and just take a long time, right? And in the end, it was a happy ending, the cumulative generated billions of dollars, but more importantly, touched millions of patients worldwide. What a remarkable thing is, now I'm actually advising, actually not advising, I co-founded a company on using AI map imaging to drive cancer treatment and diagnosis. And I've seen, and also a lot of my peer friends, and these days, basically, if you provide enough data, outline from the doctors, right? And then you can use the latest deep learning, machine learning to learn very quickly. And, it's no longer 2 years, one organ. It's really 3 months, you can have 100 organs, outline. And that speed, it's no longer Moore's law. I myself, after being general manager of Siemens technology business, have broadened all to beyond healthcare and then now return back 3 years ago for the last 3 years. And that is huge, huge change. And that would translate to bigger impacts. But that's just healthcare alone, right? If we broaden up to other industry like manufacturing, energy, transportation, every field, we see these kind of super speed increase in terms of problem that previously was very hard to commercialize. Nowadays you can. Yeah. So that's where I see the speed of commercialization of AI technology, digital technology has increased tremendously. I think a magnitude more than even a decade ago. Yeah.
It strikes me that what you're also pointing out is that, look, some of us think that digital is something that's new and innovations just started happening a few years ago. But in fact, digital and innovation and AI and many of these things have been around for a long time. And what's really changed is the velocity and the pace at which things are moving and the ability to build on the shoulders of others so that acceleration and output is just really going up. Right? And that's, I think that's remarkable. So, look, we speak in a very interesting time. I think what we're going through today is unlike what the world has been through any time in the past. And obviously some of this, unfortunately, is yet to play out. But as I look to the world around us today in the context of this pandemic that we're going through, give us some thoughts. You spent some time in the area. What's next? What kinds of technologies do we look to? Give us some ideas there.
Yeah, I think that this pandemic is really heartbreaking and it's very sad. Millions of people lose their jobs and the company, are bankrupt. It's just very sad to see that unfold as we speak. So it's a dark moment of our society. I think it's something that's a black swan event we haven't seen for a century. However, I think we never want to let the crisis go wasted. I do think this pandemic everybody is experiencing now because we all stay at home now, is that it tremendously forced people to interact, to collaborate through digital means. We're on Zoom right now, right? Not in person. And even, my daughter's, school, middle school, my friends' kids, elementary school, they're on Zoom, right? Or other means of video, teaching. And even the church, right, it's on this. And these are groups that traditional are not on digital, platform in this massive way. I think that's big push. So as any corporate members, they have children, right? They have family members. And so their daily life now is leaping ahead, even the corporate in certain access, right? So I think that's one thing. But the other thing is really back to the business, right? And we see a massive disruption on events, meetings, and now everything's done digitally. And I think it's disorienting, started. But I think as people embracing that findings to take care of it and be able to be productive, which I'm sure after this is ending, we don't know how long it will take. I think a lot of corporate, decision makers or just employees, they realize a lot of jobs they have done in the past can be done digitally and cheaper and better. And I think that habit would not go away when the pandemic is over. It will stay. So what it does is, I think it actually helped to drive a step change in the collective mindset of what digital means in doing business. I think digital transformation, you and me know for the last decade has been a buzzword, right? Every company has to be a digital company. There's a lot of speaking about it, but if you ask, traditional industrial companies, that journey is long. There's still a lot of challenge. Sanjay, you are the thought leader in the space. You know that. But this event is driving that and make it more apparent than ever. It's no longer something nice to have. It's not must to have. If you don't have it, you may not survive tomorrow, right? So I think that will drive it will make it that adopting digital transformation, accelerating, investing it much, straightforward. While before there was a lot of mental resistance, and that mindset in the corporate is always the hardest thing. It's not the technology, it's not the product, it's not the service. So I think that is the watershed moment for digital transformation. Something.
I mean, indeed, it is. I think you're right. I mean, Chenyang, it is a big watershed moment, because I think what you're suggesting is, because of the situation, we're all getting exposed to new ways of working that are, using things like the cloud and AI and more of a digital customer experience, the way we interact, transact, and do business. And I think the point you're making is, coming out of this, having done this for a while, as we work our way through the pandemic, it's unlikely that we're just going to sort of give all that up and move on back to something. And so in some ways, it is an inflection point for even greater digitization. Yeah. That the world's going to see. Yeah. And as much as this is a tragedy, I think in that we have to sort of keep our hopes up and look to the opportunity of how do we make the world a better place and put digital to play in a much bigger way. So I think that's a great sentiment for you to share with us. Listen, I'm going to ask you one other question, particularly because you consult with so many CEOs and boards on this topic of the innovation mindset. And I think just even reflecting on the current situation, and as you meet with CEOs, as you meet with boards of large corporations on the topic of innovation mindset, what is one or two things that you would share with them that you might leave us with as well today?
Yeah, I think there is sometimes perception the CEO or the board move slower, but that's actually not my experience. I think part of that is the CEO and boards want to move faster, but they're not confident, because they are dealing with so much complex machine than any of the corporate employees in their corporate, and so they need data, they need conviction, and then so this is where I see, if you bring strategic imperative why they need to change and show them how you change it, and then also be able to generating pilot, early success, and to give them confidence that their team can do it, or they may have to reconfigure their team competence so that they can take on the challenge. I think if you walk through them into that process, I think all the companies, I would say, regardless of the industry, because I really work very broadly with many industries, small, large company, Fortune 500 down to mid-sized company, even small company, particularly it's large and media side, they will change. But the question is, a lot of them don't know how to change it, or they're worried that by changing that too fast, and then their traditional business, the cash cow, will be disrupted. And I think also very common for traditional industries, they don't have the competence, right? They're not digital native, right? So and that take time. Yeah. So I think that's more the mindset part need to be worked before pushing directly to the chief information officer, or now more and more we have chief digital officer. I think the getting CEO and board on board is very important. It's actually imperative for the long-term success of any digital transformation of a company.
That's fascinating, Chenyang. Look, I think you've shared three amazing perspectives, and if I had to just kind of bridge it quickly together, and I think you talked through your early discussion on the fact that actually disruption, innovation, technology, digital isn't new. What's really new is the pace of innovation, and then the ability to build on the shoulder of others that allows us to accelerate the innovation timeframe here. It was really good to hear your thoughts about the current situation, as tragic and as difficult it is, and we're going to go through a little bit of getting worse before it gets better. The reality and the hope in that is that we see the opportunity for a better world, for a better place, and leverage what we're learning now and bring that back into play in a much bigger way. And I think your topics about cloud and video conferencing and the ways we work changing is exactly on the mark. But I thought most importantly, what you said was, for people like us that are digital professionals that work with our boards, for our boards, and serve companies across the globe, what's important is the topic of change management. And, sort of, we're all technologists and we're focused on digital and all of this capability. but it's important to balance that with a change management oriented sort of practice to bring the rest of the company along, to bring our boards, our CEOs along, and to make this a composite, comprehensive journey. I think I sort of got what you said, but if you want to add anything that you think I missed, I'd love to hear from you. But Chenyang, it's just been so fantastic to have you with us for the show. I know that you're going to be added to the LinkedIn write up on this, so your profile will be accessible, and I do hope that you'll consider taking any inputs, questions, feedback that might come back from this audiences. But before I close, Chenyang, do you want to add anything to what we've just said for our audiences?
I think you summarized very well, Sanjay. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I think in this difficult time, we wish everyone in the end will emerge, out of this crisis and become stronger. But it is a good time to, as business slow down, to step back. I think it's a perfect time to rethink about strategy forward. So whatever the strategy yesterday has to be left behind, and rethinking, because the world that we wake up after the crisis will be different. And so digital transformation and AI is squarely in the center of the strategy. So I think your series provides something very timely for everyone, who is in this space. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Thank you, Chenyang, and to our viewers, thank you for joining. An educator, a practitioner, a general manager, an innovator. Chenyang, you were fantastic in some of the perspectives you shared with us. I want to turn back to my audience and say, stay safe, be well, and look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.